What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actresses walks into what should be a simple daytime television interview, only to face the most disrespectful treatment of her entire career? It only took 27 seconds of Denise Welch's cutting remarks about her age and relevance for Dame Judi Dench to realize she had walked into an ambush disguised as a friendly chat. This is the story of how a legendary performer, known for her grace and professionalism, was pushed to her absolute breaking point on live television. A moment that would expose the toxic underbelly of daytime TV and leave viewers across the nation stunned by what they witnessed. The morning started like any other for Dame Judi Dench. She had agreed to appear on Loose Women to discuss her latest film project, expecting the usual warm reception she received from British television. At 78 years old, she had given countless interviews, charmed audiences worldwide, and earned the respect of everyone in the entertainment industry. Nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold. As the cameras rolled and the theme music faded, Denise Welch sat at the head of the panel table with that familiar smirk that regular viewers knew meant trouble was brewing. Beside her sat Ruth Langsford, Colleen Nolan, and Janet Street Porter, all seemingly unaware of the storm that was about to erupt. "Welcome back to Loose Women," Denise began, her voice carrying an edge that immediately set the wrong tone. "We're joined today by Dame Judi Dench, though I have to say, I'm surprised you're still doing the rounds at your age. Most people would have retired by now and made way for younger talent." The studio fell silent. Even the crew behind the camera seemed to freeze at the sheer audacity of the comment. Dame Judi, ever the professional, maintained her composure, though a flicker of surprise crossed her face. "Well, Denise," Dame Judi replied with measured grace, "I suppose when you love what you do as much as I do, age becomes rather irrelevant. The passion for storytelling doesn't diminish with time." Ruth Langsford shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly sensing the tension building. "Dame Judi, we're absolutely thrilled to have you here. Your new film sounds fascinating." But Denise wasn't finished. She leaned forward, that smirk growing wider. "Oh please, Ruth, let's be honest here. How many more Bond films can she possibly squeeze out of that tired old M character? Surely it's time to pass the torch to someone who can actually keep up with the action sequences." The other panel members exchanged worried glances. Colleen Nolan cleared her throat nervously while Janet Street Porter looked down at her notes, clearly uncomfortable with the direction this was taking. Dame Judi's eyes narrowed slightly, but her voice remained steady. "I think you'll find that experience and wisdom are quite valuable in any role, whether it's M or any other character I've had the privilege to portray." "Experience?" Denise scoffed, practically spitting the word. "Is that what we're calling it now? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks more like desperation, clinging to roles that should go to actresses who haven't already had their time in the spotlight." Ruth tried to intervene again. "Denise, I think perhaps we should focus on Dame Judi's incredible achievements and her new project." "No, Ruth," Denise snapped, turning her glare toward her fellow presenter. "I'm tired of everyone tiptoeing around these aging stars who refuse to step aside gracefully. It's embarrassing, quite frankly." The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Dame Judi sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, but something had shifted in her demeanor. The warmth in her eyes was beginning to fade, replaced by something much sharper. "Embarrassing," Dame Judi repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. "That's an interesting choice of words, Denise." "Well, it is though, isn't it?" Denise pressed on, apparently oblivious to the dangerous ground she was treading. "You're pushing 80, love. Don't you think it's time to let someone else have a go?" Colleen Nolan finally found her voice. "Denise, I really don't think this is appropriate. Dame Judi is our guest, and she deserves our respect." "Oh, here we go." Denise rolled her eyes dramatically. "The respect card. Just because someone's got a title doesn't mean they're immune to honest conversation." Janet Street Porter looked up from her notes, her expression troubled. "This isn't honest conversation, Denise. This is just rude." But Denise was in full flow now, her voice rising with each word. "Rude? I'll tell you what's rude. It's rude to take roles away from younger actresses who actually need the work. It's rude to cling to fame when your best days are clearly behind you." Dame Judi's composure finally began to crack. Her voice, when she spoke, carried a steely edge that none of them had heard before. "My best days behind me? I see. And who exactly appointed you the arbiter of when an actor should retire?" "Common sense appointed me," Denise shot back, "something that seems to be in short supply in your generation." The silence that followed was deafening. Ruth Langsford's mouth had fallen open in shock, while Colleen Nolan had gone pale. Even the usually outspoken Janet Street Porter seemed speechless at what she was witnessing. Dame Judi slowly removed her earpiece and placed it carefully on the table in front of her. When she looked up, her eyes were blazing with a fire that none of them had ever seen in the gentle actress they thought they knew. "In my 60 years in this business," she began, her voice quiet but carrying the force of a thunderclap, "I have never ever been spoken to with such blatant disrespect and ignorance." Denise, finally seeming to realize she might have gone too far, tried to backtrack. "Now, Dame Judi, I was just trying to have an honest discussion." "Honest?" Dame Judy's voice rose slightly. "There was nothing honest about what just happened here. That was a calculated attempt to humiliate me on live television, and I will not stand for it." Ruth Langsford desperately tried to salvage the situation. "Dame Judi, please, we're so sorry about this. Denise doesn't speak for all of us." But Denise wasn't backing down. If anything, Dame Judy's reaction seemed to fuel her further. "Oh, come on now. Don't go getting all dramatic on us. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Your generation thinks you can throw a tantrum whenever someone tells you the truth." Dame Judi stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the stunned studio. Every eye was on her as she straightened to her full height, and suddenly the legendary actress, who had commanded stages and screens for decades, was fully present. "A tantrum?" Her voice was dangerously quiet now. "You think this is a tantrum? Let me tell you something about truth, Denise. The truth is that I have worked harder in 1 week of my career than you have in your entire television run." The color drained from Denise's face, but she pressed on with misguided bravado. "That's rich coming from someone who's been coasting on the same few roles for the past 20 years. Janet Street Porter finally spoke up, her voice sharp with disapproval. "Denise, stop this right now. You're making a complete fool of yourself." "I'm making a fool of myself?" Denise whirled around to face Janet. "I'm the only one here brave enough to say what everyone's thinking." "No," Colleen Nolan interjected firmly. "You're the only one here cruel enough to attack a respected guest for no reason other than your own entertainment." Dame Judi took a step closer to the table, her presence commanding the entire room. "You want to talk about coasting, Denise? Let's talk about it. Tell me, what exactly have you contributed to the arts? What legacy are you leaving behind?" "I don't need to justify myself to you," Denise snapped, but her voice wavered slightly. "No, you don't," Dame Judi agreed. "But you certainly needed to justify attacking me on live television, and you failed spectacularly." Ruth tried once more to restore order. "Ladies, please, we're live on air. Can we please just take a breath and—" "Don't you dare try to manage me right now, Ruth." Dame Judi cut her off, though her tone toward Ruth remained respectful. "This woman," she pointed directly at Denise, "invited me here under false pretenses and then launched into a vicious attack the moment the camera started rolling." Denise's face was now flush red with anger and embarrassment. "Vicious attack? I was having a conversation about the entertainment industry. If you can't handle a little criticism, maybe you really are too old for this business." The gasp that went up from the other panel members was audible even through the television microphones. Janet Street Porter actually covered her face with her hands, while Colleen Nolan looked like she might be sick. Dame Judi's eyes flashed with fury. "Too old? I see. So in your narrow-minded view, a woman reaches a certain age and should simply disappear? Should stop creating? Stop contributing? Stop existing in public spaces?" "I didn't say that," Denise protested weakly. "Oh, but you did." Dame Judi's voice grew stronger with each word. "You said it quite clearly. You think women of my age should step aside, make way, become invisible, so that younger people can have their turn. As if talent and experience are somehow finite resources." Ruth Langsford found her courage and addressed Denise directly. "This is completely unacceptable behavior, Denise. Dame Judi is our guest, and you've been nothing but hostile since she sat down." "Thank you, Ruth." Dame Judi nodded graciously. "But I can handle this myself." She turned back to Denise with renewed intensity. "You know what's truly embarrassing? A woman using her platform to tear down other women. A presenter who thinks cruelty passes for entertainment." Denise tried to regain control of the narrative. "I was just trying to ask the hard questions that other interviewers are too polite to ask." "Hard questions?" Dame Judi laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Hard questions would be about my craft, my process, my upcoming projects. What you did was launch personal attacks disguised as journalism." Janet Street Porter leaned forward, addressing Denise with obvious frustration. "This isn't journalism, Denise. This is just spite. And frankly, it's beneath this show." "Spite?" Denise's voice rose to almost a shriek. "I'll tell you what's spite. It's taking roles that should go to actresses half your age just because you can't accept that your time is over." The studio fell completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath. Dame Judi stood perfectly still for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades of experience and wisdom. "My time is over?" She smiled, but it was a smile that could cut glass. "Denise, my time will be over when I choose it to be over. Not when some failed actress turned television presenter decides it should be." The words hit Denise like a physical blow. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, clearly not expecting Dame Judi to fight back with such precision and force. Colleen Nolan seized the moment to try to de-escalate. "Dame Judi, we want you to know that Denise's opinions are her own. The rest of us have nothing but admiration for your continued work and contributions to film and theater." "I appreciate that, Colleen," Dame Judi replied warmly. "But this goes beyond personal opinions. This is about basic human decency and respect." Denise, apparently realizing she was losing the battle badly, made one last desperate attempt to regain the upper hand. "Respect has to be earned, and I don't think clinging to past glories earns you anything but pity." The reaction from the other panel members was immediate and fierce. Ruth Langsford actually gasped out loud, while Janet Street Porter shook her head in disgust. But it was Dame Judi's response that would become the stuff of television legend. Dame Judi looked at Denise for a long moment, her expression shifting from anger to something far more dangerous, complete and utter contempt. When she spoke, her voice was steady, clear, and absolutely devastating. "Past glories," she repeated slowly. "Let me tell you about past glories, Denise. My past glories include 8 BAFTAs, an Academy Award, and 60 years of consistent professional work that has touched millions of lives around the world. What exactly are your glories, past or present?" Denise's face went white. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Dame Judi continued, her voice gaining momentum like a gathering storm. "My past glories include being made a Dame Commander of the British Empire for services to drama. They include a lifetime of creating art, of bringing joy to audiences, of mentoring young actors and actresses. Tell me, Denise, what have you built? What have you created? What will people remember about you when you're gone?" Ruth Langsford was staring at Dame Judi with obvious admiration, while Janet Street Porter was nodding vigorously. Colleen Nolan had tears in her eyes, clearly moved by the passion and dignity of Dame Judi's words. "I've worked on this show for years," Denise managed to stammer out, but her voice was weak and defensive. "Yes," Dame Judi agreed. "You have. And in all those years, have you used your platform to inspire people, to encourage them, to lift them up? Or have you simply used it to tear others down because it makes you feel better about your own failures?" The question hung in the air like a sword. Denise looked around desperately at her fellow panel members, but found no support there. Ruth was looking at her with obvious disappointment, Janet with disgust, and Colleen with something approaching pity. "You don't know anything about my career," Denise said weakly. Dame Judi's laugh was cold and sharp. "I know enough. I know that in the space of 15 minutes, you've shown me exactly who you are. A small, bitter person who mistakes cruelty for honesty and thinks that tearing others down will somehow build you up." Janet Street Porter finally exploded. "Denise, this is absolutely disgraceful. Dame Judi came here as our guest, and you've treated her abominably. You should be ashamed of yourself." "Don't you start on me too, Janet," Denise snapped, but there was no fight left in her voice. "I'll start on whoever I please when they behave this badly," Janet shot back. "This is the most unprofessional display I've ever witnessed on live television." Dame Judi reached for her handbag, which had been placed beside her chair. "You know what the truly sad thing is, Denise? You had the opportunity to have a wonderful conversation with someone who might have shared some interesting stories, some insights from 6 decades in the entertainment industry. Instead, you chose to waste it on petty jealousy and spite." Ruth Langsford stood up quickly. "Dame Judi, please don't leave. We can continue this interview properly. Denise, I think you should apologize." "Apologize?" Denise's voice cracked with indignation, but she was clearly rattled. "For what? For speaking my mind?" Dame Judi turned to face her one final time. "For speaking your mind? No, Denise. Apologize for showing the entire country what kind of person you really are. Apologize for wasting everyone's time with your bitterness. Apologize for proving that some people will use any platform, no matter how small, to spread negativity rather than create something worthwhile." Colleen Nolan found her voice again. "Dame Judi is right. This has been completely unacceptable. We invited you here to talk about your new film, and instead you've been subjected to a personal attack." "It wasn't a personal attack," Denise protested, but her voice was barely above a whisper now. "It was nothing but a personal attack," Dame Judi corrected firmly. From the moment I sat down, you made it clear that you had already decided to be hostile. You didn't ask about my work, my process, my passion for acting. You attacked my age, my relevance, my right to continue working. That's not journalism, Denise. That's just bullying. The word bullying seemed to hit Denise like a physical blow. She slumped back in her chair, suddenly looking very small and very alone at the panel table. Dame Judi adjusted her handbag on her shoulder and looked directly into the main camera. To the viewers at home, I want you to know that this kind of behavior is not representative of the wonderful people I usually have the pleasure of working with in British television. Most presenters are professional, respectful, and genuinely interested in having meaningful conversations. She turned back to the panel, her expression softening slightly as she looked at Ruth, Janet, and Colleen. Thank you three for trying to maintain some dignity during this debacle. Your efforts to redirect the conversation were appreciated, even if they were ultimately unsuccessful. Ruth stood up and extended her hand. Dame Judi, I cannot apologize enough for what happened here today. This is not how we conduct interviews on this show, and it's certainly not how we treat our guests. Dame Judi shook Ruth's hand graciously. Thank you, Ruth. I can see that you're a professional, and I appreciate your attempts to salvage this situation. Janet Street Porter also stood up. Dame Judi, I'm mortified by what happened here today. You handled this with more grace than anyone should have to. Thank you, Janet. Your support during this ordeal was noted and appreciated. Colleen Nolan wiped tears from her eyes as she stood. I'm so sorry. You came here expecting a normal interview about your work, and instead you were subjected to this treatment. It's unforgivable. Dame Judi's expression grew warm as she looked at Colleen. Don't cry, dear. This isn't your fault. You all tried to steer things in the right direction. Throughout all of this, Denise remained seated, staring down at her hands, completely deflated and thoroughly defeated. Dame Judi took one last look around the studio, then addressed the camera once more. I've had a wonderful career, and I intend to continue having one for as long as I'm able. Age is not a barrier to creativity, passion, or contribution. Anyone who suggests otherwise is simply revealing their own limitations. With that, Dame Judi Dench walked off the set with her head held high, leaving behind a studio full of shocked crew members, 3 embarrassed but supportive panel members, and 1 thoroughly humiliated presenter who had learned, far too late, what happens when you mistake a legend's kindness for weakness. The cameras continued to roll for several more seconds, capturing Denise's stunned silence and the obvious discomfort of everyone else involved. It was a moment that would be replayed countless times, not as a triumph of confrontational television, but as a masterclass in dignity under fire.